Welcome to CrashMagic. In this video we're going to look at a card trick called the Australian Fives. A version of this trick is featured in the Card College Lighter book, and I think this is a really nice effect, especially if you've got two spectators. So let me show you my performance of this trick, and then straight after I'll do a tutorial. For this trick then we've got two spectators. In a second I'm going to teach those spectators how to do an Australian deal. I don't know if you've ever seen that before or know how to do that. But first thing I'm going to do is ask my first spectator to select a card. So I'm going to start dealing cards down onto the table, and if my first spectator could say stop at any time they like, somewhere in the first half of the pack though, so that there's then plenty of choice for the second spectator as well. So let's say our spectator says stop here. I'd ask them to look at and remember this card, and also to show it to any other spectators. And then I'd ask the second spectator to do the same. So again, I'll deal cards down, and if they could say stop again within the first half of the pack, let's say they say stop here, so I'd ask them to look at and remember their card. And again we'll place it back on top. So absolutely free choice by the spectators of which cards to select. And now we're going to try and find their cards. Now I'm going to deal the cards face up like this. I don't want either spectator to react if they see their card, and I'm going to try and see if we can find their cards. As I say, no reaction if you see your card. Ooh. Is this either of your cards? No. Okay. We might use this though. I don't know if this is one of the Australian fives. So the Australian fives are the two red fives. You've got the five of hearts and of course the five of diamonds as well. So maybe we'll try and use this to find your cards. So if we deal another 5 cards on top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to keep looking face up. Again, no reaction if we see either of your cards. I don't think we've got to either of your cards yet, but here's the other Australian five, the 5 of diamonds. So maybe we'll change this slightly and we'll use these instead. So I'll deal 5 cards on top of that. And so first spectator then, if you could take these cards, and I'd like you to do an Australian deal. Now I'm sure you know Australia is also known as down under, and that's how you do an Australian deal. So you deal 1 card down, 1 card under, 1 card down, 1 card under, down, under, down, under, down, until you end up with your Australian 5 on top of your pile and you're left just holding 1 card. Spectator 2, if you could do the same now then. So if you could take your pile and deal 1 card down, under, down, under, down, under, down, under, down, again until your 5 is on top of your pile and you're left just holding 1 card. So I've no idea what card you could have selected. Cards have been cut and shuffled, and you've dealt using the Australian fives. But wouldn't it be amazing if these 2 cards were your selected cards? Well, I hope you enjoyed my performance of the Australian fives, and if you did and you'd like to learn it, here's the tutorial. So for this trick we need a very simple setup, and that setup is we just need the 2 Australian fives, the 2 red fives, second from the top and second from the bottom. That's the only setup we need. Now of course you can do any sort of false cut or false shuffle at this point to start your trick if you like. All I did was did a riffle shuffle, making sure the bottom 2 cards of this pile hit the table first before we started riffling, and then made sure the last 2 cards at least of this pile were on top in order to retain our 2 fives, second from top and second from bottom. So from this point, everything now is self-working. You can ask your spectator to say stop at any point. Of course, you need to deal at least 2 cards down, and they can say stop at any point. Now, they literally can say stop at any point, but I always like to ask them to stop within the first half of the pack. And the reason I do that is then you can control more easily where the 2 selected cards, and you know which spectator has picked which cards. If you start going past the centre and the other spectator might stop early or late, then it's harder to track whose card is whose. But if they stop within the first half and look at and remember a card, so we've got the Jack of Diamonds this time, then place it on top, and all you do then is drop the rest of the pack on top, and that of course places this 5 that's second from the bottom 2 above their selected card, so Jack of Diamonds in this case. So their selected card is here. So now we're going to do the same again for the second spectator. So now again, if you ask them to stop within the first half, then as I say, it stops the order of the cards getting mixed up, but they can say stop at any point. Let's say they say stop here. Let's look at their card. Oh, that's nice and easy to remember. So we've got Jack of Diamonds for spectator 1, and spectator 2 has got the Queen of Diamonds. So again, once they've looked at and remembered the card, you just drop it onto the pile, drop the rest of the pack on top, and that will then put the other red 5 2 above that card. So at this point you can do any number of cuts, because the order of those cards is not going to change. It's just going to be the rotation that's going to change if you just do a lot of cuts. But again, to try and keep those cards in order, where I know where spectator 1's card is and spectator 2's card is, all I tend to do is 2 cuts. I cut somewhere in the middle and complete the cut, and then somewhere in the middle again and complete the cut. And by doing that, the first spectator's card is still going to be up in the top half of the pack, and spectator 2's card is going to be somewhere down in the bottom half of the pack. So then you just go through dealing face up. I always tell the spectators not to react if they see their card, but in actual fact, if you followed these steps, we shouldn't see their card before we see one of the red 5s. So we go through under the pretense of looking for their cards until we get to one of the red 5s. There we go, there's the first red 5. So we explain to them how the 5 of hearts and the 5 of diamonds are called the Australian 5s. And once we find one, we take that card out, put it face up, and then deal 5 cards face down on top of that card. 1, 2. Now the second card that goes down should be the first spectator's card. 3, 4, 5. Then we carry on again, dealing face up, under the pretense of looking for their cards, but again, we're not going to find their cards until we first find the other red 5, which is here. So again, we'll take that out, and again we'll deal 5 cards face down on top of that. 1, 2. Again, that second card is going to be the second spectator's chosen card. 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, so we can remove the rest of the cards now. We don't need those. Now, of course, both at the same time, you can hand these piles to spectator 1 and spectator 2 and ask them to do the Australian deal, which you explain to them is where they deal 1 card down, 1 card under, down, under, down, under, down, under, down, and it will always be the case that once the red 5 is on top of the pile, they'll have 1 card left in their hand. So the down under, the second spectator will be doing the same at exactly the same time until they're left holding a card, and they can then reveal their cards to show that they're their chosen cards. That then is the end of the video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. If you've got any comments, leave them down below, and see you soon.